everybody, Shane Severson here, Legacy Realty, joining you on this Tuesday for this week's Tips Tuesday. I shot these back to back so that you could have all of this information. If you remember at our market update, if you watched that, I talked about this graph. We have probably the most the quickest shift in a market that I've ever seen. Everything you're going to hear, everything you're going to see is saying the market's going to drop and so forth. And so I want to talk about that. We are looking at this graph right here, and the major shift is in fear. It's in, obviously the interest rates just jumped a ton. And so people feel like this market is going to shift and drop, and that's the pop of the bubble. Now, let me describe what is going on here. So I've done videos like this before. This red line here is our market. Let's say it's growing at 6%, as you can see, year over year. That's historic. In the last couple of years, we've been closer to about 18%, and that is a false bubble that has been built up that I believe just popped. And I've talked about this for years. If our market is growing at 6%, that 6% will continue. Maybe a little lower, maybe a little bit higher, but that is going to continue. Our Denver market is not popping. It's not going to start going down. If you're a buyer waiting, it's not going to be cheaper. It's going to continue to grow. And I'm going to talk about that in this series on Tips Tuesday. This may be a little bit longer of a Tips Tuesday, but if you really want to understand the Denver market and what's going on, particularly right now, I would encourage you to watch this thoroughly. Right now, what is going on is this is our market at the 6%, you can see. If our home within this COVID period of the last 2 years was on the market at 650, I contend that that house is worth 650. It was worth 650. The comparables at one time were 650. The appraisers are coming in saying it's worth 650, but buyers, because of supply and demand, because of the low interest rates, were willing to bid 75, 80, 100, 200. I saw one, you're not even going to believe me, 500,000 overbid on a house. Whoever that agent was, like, I'm sorry you hired that agent, because they did you a really, really bad job. Make sure you have an agent that is taking care of you in these shifting times. But the point being, that massive overbid of $80,000 to $100,000, I've said for 2 years, once the overbids stop, those prices will drop back down to where the market is. That means this market you're going to see is not going to drop. It will continue to grow. What did drop is the overbids, and we will see the ramifications of that for the next 6 months, 12 months, something like that. And then this will be a thing of the past. We won't even think about this anymore. But the point is, if you're a buyer, are you getting a screaming deal? No. If you're a seller, are you losing a ton of money? Well, if you would have listed 3-4 months ago, yeah, I guess you could contend that that's magic money that you could have made, and in essence you could have. Right now you will not. Your house is now worth 650 again, if that's what it was before the market. So here's the deal. Everything you're going to see, water cooler, miseducation, you're going to have agents say the market's crashing. If you hear any of that, don't listen to it. It's false. You're going to hear a lot of news right now say that the market is crashing. It's not true. It's not happening. So it's so important to understand exactly why that is. Here, I'll give you an example. The market and the news is going to start telling you foreclosures are going up hundreds and hundreds of %. Is that true? I would say yes, it is true, but you have to understand why foreclosures are going up. Here's the deal. We had a moratorium. We could not foreclose on people for the last 2 years. What does that mean? I could show you graphs. I could show you charts. This isn't made up. This isn't just Shane, his emotions raging. I can show you the graphs and show you the charts. We have had zero I repeat, 0 foreclosures in the last 2 years. So what does that mean? If we add 1 foreclosure, 1 in the entire United States, in the entire Denver market, that's hundreds of a percent increase by adding 1 foreclosure. Therefore, the news can spin this and say we're up hundreds of percents increase in foreclosures. The market's crashing because of rates, because of prices. It's getting too expensive, and that some of that may be true. I'll address a couple of that here in just a quick second. But these foreclosures are not coming because of any of that. So don't buy it. Don't believe it. The market is not crashing, and if you feel like it is and you wait any longer, you're simply making an uneducated, very bad decision. Now, why would I say that it's not dropping? I could take you, if you're really, really interested, I would invite you to come to some of the seminars, hanging out with some of the most brilliant minds that are in the market, and you can hear the statistics, you can see all the graphs and all the charts. It would take me hours to get through it. I don't have time to do that, but I'll share just a couple statistics with you without charts, without numbers, just some ideas on why the market is not dropping. Number one, we have never in history ever seen a drop in a market when there's a lack of inventory. Markets are driven on supply and demand. If all of a sudden people don't want to buy homes anymore, that changes things, but that takes years to get to. That is not the case. We can see that we have masses of pent-up buyers, all kinds of reasons for that. Millennials are now buying. We still have people flooding into Denver. There's not enough building. We're building at the same rate as the Great Depression. You heard me right. We are building today at the same rate as the Great Depression. This isn't a sales promotion. People would say that's not true. Look at all the building. I've got charts and graphs I could show you. So if you are questioning what I say or want to understand more clearly, reach out. I can explain all this to you. Never in history have we ever seen a time where it dropped when there's a supply and demand issue, and we have a major supply and demand issue right now. Number two, rates have never in history been a direct correlation on the market crashing or dropping. Think about it. Back in the day, in the 80s, in the 90s, markets in Denver were going up. It was climbing like this. Rates were in the 10s, 12s, 15s. When I got in the business, I was selling 12% interest rates, and the market was screaming hot in the 12s. So people thinking that 6% interest rates are somehow going to crash the market is simply not true. Did it cause fear in the market? Yes. Did it cause people to second guess? Yes, but the market's still climbing. I think we're going to see it climb, and we'll see it climb, I think, for 10, 15 years coming. Many people feel like it's just too expensive to live in Denver. That is not true. Yes, for a 20-year-old just getting out of college, buying a $700,000 house is very expensive, but that 20-year-old today getting out of college is making 50 grand, 70 grand, 100 grand, whatever they're making. When my grandparents bought their first home, they were making $3,000. How do you compare those two correlations? We can look at mortgage qualifications, and the qualifications, the debt to income ratio, are exactly the same for people qualifying today as they did back when your grandparents and parents bought homes. It's not more expensive. It is inflation taking effect, and your grandparents, your parents were freaking out. How am I going to buy a home for $20,000 back in the day? It's just as cost effective today. Again, I've got charts, I've got all that I can show you. So are we getting to the point where people will not be able to buy in Denver? With all that being said, yes, the more expensive it gets, that lower end population will not be able to buy. It's always been that way. That is increasing with prices. So will people not be able to afford to buy? Yes. What do? I buy now because you will one day get priced out of the market. And number two, will people have to start renting more? Yes, that's why investors are flooding into Denver buying real estate, because those people will have to rent possibly for the rest of their life, and rent. People who own property are going to take advantage of that. So if you're a buyer, buy now. If you're a seller, don't freak out. Don't think the market is crashing. It is not. Make sure you time the market right. It's still a good time to buy. It's still a good time to sell. And I think it's a great time to invest. Obviously, I'm buying as much property as I can. So anyway, that's a long Tips Tuesday, but I hope that makes sense. The market is not crashing. Was there a bubble? Yes, I've talked about it for 2 years. It was the overinflated overbids. If you just bought a home last year and you massively overbid, talk to your agent, because you may be upside down for just a little bit, but it will catch up because the market will increase. I hope that helps. I hope that answers questions. There's probably still a lot of questions on this. Feel free to reach out. I would love to buy you coffee. I'd love to sit down and talk about this and how you can take advantage of this crazy Denver market. God bless. We'll see you real soon.